think this is my first time wearing yellow in a video, and that's honestly really exciting for me. I don't wear color that much, so every time I wear a new color in a video is exciting. Like, oh my god, I'm stepping out of my usual boundaries of neutral grays and blues and blacks, and I'm wearing yellow. And yes, this is a Disneyland vintage t-shirt from, I believe, like the 90s or something. I don't know, but you know, I love it. I love this t-shirt. I love Disney. I love Disney World and Disneyland. Yes. On into the video. Let's go. Hey guys, what's going on? So today we are doing a very special video. Since it's the end of 2020, I thought I would make a quick little video discussing my favorites of 2020. So today we are going to do 20 of my favorite movies of the year, and this is not 2020 releases, because I definitely did not watch 20 movies, new release 2020 movies in December, just because of the movie theaters being closed and me not being able to pay for every single movie that went out on demand, like in a where you'd have to rent it or buy it or whatever. Yeah, I definitely did not see a bunch of 2020 releases, sadly, this year. I'm hoping to catch up on them in 2021. So this is just 20 movies that I just watched in 2020, whether they're a movie from the 80s or a 2020 movie that were my favorites. And then we're also going to discuss 5 TV shows that were 5 of my favorite TV shows I watched this year. These are in no particular order. There's no way I could possibly rank these. It would take me forever, and then I'd probably change my mind on the ranking within 5 minutes, within a day. So I'm not even gonna try and rank them. I'm just gonna say them in no particular order. So let's start off with the TV shows. Okay, so my first favorite TV show that I watched in 2020 is, drumroll, yes, such a good drum roll, me by myself, Sex and the City, guys. I watched Sex and the City for the first time. If you watched my October wrap-up, I'll leave a card for that up here. I talked a ton about my thoughts on Sex and the City, but yeah, first time ever watching it. I loved it. I knew I would love it, and it was amazing. One of my favorite shows of 2020 that I watched. My second favorite show that I watched in 2020 was The Mandalorian, specifically season 2, since I believe all of season 1 was in 2019. But yeah, Mandalorian makes the list for this year. I loved The Mandalorian. I love Star Wars. I love Jedi. I love lightsabers. I love Star Wars music. I just love Star Wars so much, guys. I'm not like a huge fan where I know all the lore, unfortunately. I would love to, but I'm like in between like a casual fan and a mega fan. I'm like in that sweet spot in the middle where I just I go for it watching it, but I don't know a lot of the like book stuff. Star Wars Rebels, I haven't seen that TV show yet. I don't know a lot of the video game stuff. There's a lot I don't know, but I'm not like a casual fan either. I don't know. I'm in that weird sweet spot, and that's my Star Wars appreciation level. I just love it. I love it. It makes me cry. The Star Wars world just makes me cry how much I love the music and how much I love like Luke Skywalker and just all those characters. I love them, and so therefore I love The Mandalorian. It's just an automatic thing. So yeah, one of my favorite shows slash seasons, I guess, of 2020. And the third favorite show of mine in 2020 was The Haunting of Bly Manor. I reacted to every single episode of The Haunting of Bly Manor on this channel. I'll leave one of the episodes up here. I'll leave episode 5 up here because that episode is one of my favorite episodes of the show, but I highly recommend, if you're a fan of The Haunting of Bly Manor, or yeah, if you're a fan, I highly recommend going and checking out my reactions I did to every episode. I'll link them all down below as well. They're a fun time. I had such a fun time filming those reactions, and I had such a fun time with the show. Mike Flanagan is one of my favorite directors in the horror genre, and just favorite directors in general. And I adored The Haunting of Hill House back in, I believe, 2018, so I was so excited for The Haunting of Bly Manor, and it did not disappoint, and I'm so excited to see what Mike Flanagan does next with his Haunting series, I hope. My next favorite show of 2020 is actually one I've never talked about on this channel because I watched it before I even began this channel, and that is The Tudors. I don't think I've spoken about The Tudors, but I watched this show over the summer of 2020 and I loved it. I am a huge fan, or like I am very intrigued by the time and history of like King Henry VIII and his 6 wives. I think that whole time period and that whole kind of story of what happened with that is so interesting. And I'm also a really big fan of Six the Musical. So I went into this a lot in my October wrap-up about my interest in the time period because I was watching The Spanish Princess that also takes place in that time period. But prior to watching season 2 of The Spanish Princess over the summer, I watched The Tudors, which is pretty much a Showtime, I believe, show just about that whole time. It starts with Henry VIII whenever he's in his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, kind of in the latter period of it, like they've been married for a good while and it's kind of getting to where he's ready to get out of the marriage. She's not been able to produce an heir for him, so he's ready to move on, and then he meets Anne Boleyn, and so then that's kind of like one of the main focal points of seasons 1 and 2 is his relationship with Anne Boleyn, and then it goes into like every single wife down to when he dies. Spoiler alert to history, but yes, King Henry VIII does die after the 6th wife. But yeah, I loved the show, mainly just because I loved the whole story, and I thought they did a really good job of portraying the whole story of that king, that terrible, mean, weird king of England, and all of the wives who had to suffer through him, and the terrible times of how if you are not able to have a boy, then you are inferior and God doesn't love you. That whole time and that whole just opinion of that age, like literally, the wife can't control that. Like I don't need to have a rant on this because we all know the wife cannot control whether she has a boy or a girl. Like, that can't be controlled. So that whole mindset that they had back in the day is just so weird and so like hilarious and just crazy to me. So, and that's a big focal point of the show, is just Henry VIII angry at almost every wife of his, like, why can't you give me a boy? And she's like, I'm trying in the process I'm having so much difficulty with pregnancies. But anyways, it's a fantastic show. I highly recommend, if you are a fan of historical fiction or that period of time in general, I highly recommend checking out The Tudors. It's on Showtime, I believe. Yeah. And my last favorite show that I watched in 2020 is another show that I actually haven't spoken about on this channel because I watched it in the springtime of 2020. And this is another iconic show that I started for the first time this year, and that is Lost. Guys, I watched Lost for the first time and I loved it. I loved it. There were some parts I didn't love though. There was a couple of seasons that kind of were meh, but I loved those first, like, I'd say maybe 3, I think, seasons. I don't remember how many seasons there are total, but I definitely loved the first 3 seasons. My main thing, though, is that I was just so hooked. Even through the somewhat meh seasons, I was still hooked because I needed to know how it ended. I needed to know what happened. And if you're curious about my opinion on the ending of Lost, I don't want to go into spoilers, but it did make me cry. I don't know if I loved it. I don't know if I was happy with it. I think I didn't hate the ending, but I don't know if that's what I wanted from the ending. I don't know what I want. I just wanted to know how it ended, and now I know. So it kind of blew my mind a bit how it ended. It made me really emotional how it ended. I know that. I finished it at like 5 or 6 a.m. in the morning, and I just sat there crying. I was like, because it took me a while. It took me about 4 months to watch the show. Maybe 5? I don't know. But it was just an emotional journey because at the time of watching it, I wasn't watching like a million shows at once like I usually do. I was watching like that show, and I think that's it. Maybe like one other show with it. So I was just full on with that show for so long, and then all of a sudden it was over, and I wasn't gonna see anything new from those characters because I loved the characters. And yeah, I loved Lost, one of my favorites of the year, just for how iconic it was. I was so excited, just I'd seen it. I now know what Lost is. I'm able to join in the discourse of Lost, even though I don't remember half of the show anymore, because there's just so much that happened. But the main parts I do remember. I'm just not going to go into it because of spoilers and because of the fear that maybe I did forget more than I'm really thinking of. I don't want to test that though and make myself look like a fool. So yeah, I loved Lost. Fantastic show overall and very iconic. Yeah, highly recommend Lost. It's on Hulu, I believe. It was on Hulu when I watched it, so I think it should still be on Hulu now. Let's jump into the movie portion of this video. I'm not gonna go too much into all the movies because there's 20 of them and I don't want this video to be a bajillion minutes long. So yeah, if you want to hear more about my thoughts on any of these movies, just pop a little comment down below being like, hey, I want to know more about this movie. What were your thoughts on this part of it? Or what were your thoughts on these characters? Or anything like that, you know? Just let me know and I'll feel free. I would love to answer you in the comments and go into a more in-depth review on it. Just let me know. So anyways, just again, in no particular order, but I think the order that I kind of went in is the order when I watched them in the year, so that's kind of the rough order, but there's no favorites order. So my first favorite movie I watched in 2020 is the movie 1917. Y'all, I adored 1917. It was one of the last movies I got to watch in theaters before the pandemic began and all of this got started and theaters closed down. It was like one of the last, I think, 3 or 4 movies. I think I watched Birds of Prey after it and I went and saw Onward, but I think that was it. I think it was one of the last ones. And y'all, I adored 1917. I loved it. It made me cry for the whole last 30 minutes of the movie. The score is one of the best scores ever. I loved the score and I just loved it. I loved it so much. Spoilers really quickly for 1917, but the scene at the end when Richard Madden showed up, aka the oldest Stark brother, I'm blanking on his name. Robert Stark? Robert Stark? That's wrong. His name is not Robert Stark. Or is his name Robert Stark? Oh my god. Hold on. I gotta know his name. It's not Ned, because that's the dad. Rob! Oh my god, I was so close! Rob Stark. Okay, yeah, when Richard Madden, aka Rob Stark, showed up at the end and it panned to him and he turned around dramatically from what I remember, or maybe I just imagined that he turned around dramatically in my head, but and the music swelled, I started bawling. I was like, oh my god, because I love Rob Stark in Game of Thrones and I love that actor, and just seeing him playing the older brother, I lost it. I couldn't take it. I was like, perfect. This movie is already brilliant and they just made it perfect. They just made this movie everything I wanted and more, just having him in this last 15 minutes of the movie. So yeah, I love 1917, guys. It's definitely one of my favorite movies of 2019, in terms of it coming out in 2019, and it is one of my favorite movies that I watched in 2020. My next favorite movie that I watched in 2020 is Klaus, the Netflix animated Christmas movie that came out in 2019. I loved Klaus. Klaus was adorable, and I wasn't sold on Klaus until I'd say maybe a third of the way in. That first third or whatever was cute, it was fun, and then it reached a point maybe about a third-ish away through where I was just like, oh my god, this is so good. This is one of the best animated movies of the year, and I was so happy when it got nominated for Best Animated Feature. I'm sad it didn't win. Klaus deserved to win. I don't think it won. It didn't win. It was so good. I loved Klaus. The ending made me cry. You're probably gonna see a very common thread of a lot of my favorite movies making me cry, because you know, when a movie sways me to that emotion, whether it's a happy cry or a sad cry, I tend to love the movie even more than I did already. So yeah, I loved Klaus. My third favorite movie that I watched in 2020 is Logan. Yes, I am late on the Logan game. That movie came out in 2017, but I actually didn't watch any of the X-Men movies until 2020. I watched for the first time every X-Men movie, from the 2000 X-Men movie where it all started with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, all up until Dark Phoenix, which came out in 2019. I was watching them all in preparation of The New Mutants, which I thought was going to be coming out in April, and then didn't come out until August. I still saw it in August, but yeah, so I prepared and watched all the X-Men movies between February and March. So I finally saw Logan and it was brilliant, as everyone has spoken about. One of the best superhero movies to come out. I love how they did it. I loved how they portrayed Wolverine, and the other guy played by Patrick Stewart that I'm now blanking on the name of. The one who's in a wheelchair with the epic brain, smart brain, that guy. Don't remember his name. Y'all are gonna come after me that I don't remember his name. But yeah, I just loved how they portrayed the characters in Logan. And I loved the girl. She was awesome. She's also awesome in His Dark Materials. I've seen the first season of His Dark Materials. Haven't started the second season yet. But anyways, yeah, I loved Logan. Fantastic. The next movie of my favorite movies of 2020 is another movie that I don't think a lot of people watched. It's a Netflix original, not really an original, but it was distributed by Netflix, and it is called The Platform. It's an international film, I believe from either Spain or Mexico. I do not know. I'll put it where it originated from here. But I loved The Platform, guys. It was so dark, but so good, and I could not stop thinking about it for like 2 days after watching it. Just the concept of it was so original and just so dark, but so good. And I definitely want to rewatch it again in the future. It's just a lot. It's a lot to watch. It was so exhausting. But yeah, highly recommend if you can take dark stuff, very, very, not gory, but there is some just gore in there, and it's dark, but it's so good. So if you can take that type of stuff, definitely recommend go checking it out on Netflix. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. My next favorite movie of 2020 is another movie that I don't think that many people have seen, at least like in the common movie realm. I think a lot of film buffs have maybe seen it, but I don't know how many of y'all have seen it. But it is a movie called Victoria from 2015, and y'all, this movie blew my mind. I had my parents watch it like a week after I watched it because I just could not take how amazing it is. And one of the main reasons why it's amazing is it was literally all done in one take. And no, it's not like Birdman where they make you think it's done all in one take, but there are a couple of edits here and there. Same with 1917. It's meant to portray like it's all one take, but there are a couple of little parts here and there. So yeah, the thing about the thing about Victoria is it is literally done all in one take. They did it, there's a whole thing. I'll link the article I read about it down below about how they filmed the movie, but they literally filmed it, I think twice in one night, or maybe they did it 3 consecutive nights in a row, and it was they just spent an hour and 40 minutes or however long the movie is, an hour and 50 minutes or whatever, filming the whole thing, and they just did not stop. And it's brilliant. It's not even oh, that's the main reason I love it. The story is also amazing. Yeah, I highly recommend checking out Victoria if you haven't seen it. I believe the only place you can check it out is by renting it on Amazon Prime, but y'all, please go watch and support the movie. It was a very small, I think indie movie, and it's just bellissimo, beautiful, amazing, fantastic one-take movie. It blows my mind every time I watched it. The first time I watched it, I could not stop thinking about it, just like how I was with The Platform. I could not stop thinking about it for a week. It was beautiful. Such a fantastic movie. The next of my favorite movies of 2020 is a movie that I believe came out in 2014, 2013, not really sure of the year, but it's called Only Lovers Left Alive, and it stars Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton. And y'all, it's a vampire movie, and it's so good. It is so fantastic. I'm obsessed with the vibe of the movie. It's it reminds me kind of Twilight, just in the score and just the vibe it gives me. I can't explain it, but just where it takes place and the activities they go through. It's nothing like Twilight plot-wise, writing-wise. It's a beautifully made vampire movie. So good. Please don't think it's like Twilight. I know that so many people hate Twilight. I love Twilight, but I know there's so many people who don't, so don't think it's like Twilight. It's nothing like Twilight. It's just, I don't know, the atmosphere of where the movie takes place and just the score. I think it's the score. The score is very grungy, dark. Tom Hiddleston's vampire character plays the guitar, and he makes what they describe in the movie as funeral music, and so that's what it is. The score is funeral, dark guitar funeral music, and it's beautiful. I can't explain it, but please go check the movie out. It's on Stars. At least when I watched it, it was on Stars. I had my mom watch it too, and she loved it. Yeah, I think it's an underrated movie. So if you're in the mood for a really kind of grungy in a way, but I don't know if grungy is the right word, just really with a cool atmosphere, cool vampire movie, I recommend Only Lovers Left Alive. It's on Stars. My next favorite movie of 2020 is a, I believe, 2017 release, and it is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Kind of late to the game on this movie. Everyone was watching it when it was up for like awards buzz and stuff, you know, a couple years ago, and that was just one of the movies I hadn't gotten around to at that time, and I finally watched it this year, and I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I thought it'd be okay, but I adored it. The plot was so good. The actors were just fantastic in it, and I don't know, just how it was made, I just loved it. So yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. I loved it. Fantastic movie. I know some people don't love it, but some people do love it like me, so I loved it, yeah. My next favorite movie of 2020, I'm so excited to talk about this one, y'all, because I don't think if you watch any other 2020 favorites of this year, you're gonna see this movie on the list. But it's on my list, and it's a 2020 release, and this movie is Eurovision Song Contest, The Story of Fire Saga. Guys, is this one of the most high-quality movies I watched this year? No. But is it still one of my favorites? Yes. I adored it. The soundtrack for this movie, guys, fantastic. One of the best soundtracks of 2020. I loved this movie. I love Rachel McAdams as an actress. She's one of my favorite actresses, and she killed it in this movie. Yes, she wasn't really singing the songs. I know, I read an article where like they had this beautiful Icelandic, I think, or maybe Greek, Icelandic, I don't know, singer singing the songs, and then she also recorded the songs, and they like melded their voices together to where it was like 75% the Icelandic singer and 25% Rachel McAdams, or maybe 90% of the other singer and 10% Rachel McAdams. I don't know the details of how it worked, but her songs that she performed, whether it was barely her voice at all or not, I don't know, they were beautiful. The singer who sang for the movie, her voice is just so angelic. And then Will Ferrell was hilarious, you know. I know he had a lot to do with the movie. I believe he like wrote it. I think he co-wrote it. I don't remember, but he was hilarious as usual. And I loved the plot. I was not really too familiar with Eurovision, the yearly like European contest. I haven't watched it in the past, but I don't know. I was so excited to see a movie based off of Eurovision, though, even though I'm not familiar. I haven't watched the actual real life competition. But I loved everything about it without going into spoilers. If you want to know more on my thoughts on Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire Saga, let me know in the comments, because I would love to talk more about the movie. It was fantastic. It was beautiful. Not, you know, like not like high quality one of the best movies of 2020, but like in my personal opinion, one of my favorites of 2020. It was just so delightful. It made me so happy. I loved it. My next favorite movie of 2020, I'm having so much fun right now talking about all these movies I love, but my next favorite is Ghost, the movie from the 80s starring Patrick Swayze, and my mom is gonna kill me, but I don't remember the female actress's name, but also what's her name is in this movie. You know what, I'm just gonna look up the cast real quickly so I can say the lead girl's name as well as the other girl I'm thinking of that I love in the movie. Demi Moore. You know, I was thinking Demi Moore. I just didn't think I was right. And then Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my god. Y'all, let me just discuss this movie for 2 seconds. I loved this movie, and I'd seen clips of this movie on TV before, like when my mom would watch it, because my mom's a big fan of the movie, but I was so happy that I finally watched this movie for the first time all the way through, because I loved it. I loved the plot. I loved Patrick Swayze, Whoopi Goldberg. All of her scenes were the best scenes. I loved Whoopi Goldberg. I cannot explain how much I loved Whoopi Goldberg in this movie, y'all. She was so good. She just performed her role so well. I just loved her in it, and I loved everything about it. Demi Moore was also fantastic in the movie. It's just fantastic. If you guys haven't seen Ghost, I don't remember what streaming service platform it's on, but highly recommend checking out Ghost. It's fantastic, and I think it's not spoken about as much as it deserves in this day and age. More people need to be talking about Ghost. My next favorite movie of 2020, and this is actually kind of a not controversial one, but it's kind of an odd pick because a lot of people don't actually like this movie, and I loved it unironically and kind of also somewhat ironically. But Rock of Ages from 2012, I believe, starring Julianne Hough and what's his name? Tom Cruise. Those are like the main two stars. There was some other well-known people in it, but I don't remember them. My main focal point about this movie was Tom Cruise, y'all. I never thought I would watch a movie where I would be so happy with Tom Cruise in it. Like, there's movies I've watched in the past, like Eyes Wide Shut and a couple other movies where Tom Cruise is in them, and he's in them. I'm not here like, oh my god, Tom Cruise is one of my favorite characters. He's just in it, and I can appreciate that he's acting it well. But in this movie, y'all, in Rock of Ages, I was like so thrilled. Every time there was a Tom Cruise scene, I was like, yes, give me Tom Cruise performing. Give me this 80s hair rock phenomenon, Tom Cruise. It was so good. I just loved all the covers of the iconic 80s rock music, and maybe also some 70s, but I believe it was just primarily like 80s rock music. It was just so fun. Yes, it is not the best movie in the world, but I loved it. I thought it was so fun, and I had such a fun time with it. And I understand if you have seen Rock of Ages and you don't like it. I get it. I 100% get you, but I loved it. I loved Tom Cruise in it. Julianne Hough was very good. Also, Catherine Zeta-Jones was in it, and she was also one of the highlights for me. It was Catherine Zeta-Jones, and it was Tom Cruise. They made the movie. I loved them, and I loved it. So yeah, one of my favorites of 2020. Who would have known Rock of Ages would be one of my favorite movies of 2020? But it is. It is. My next favorite movie of 2020 is actually a cheat. It's actually a trilogy, but I'm counting it in the 20. So technically this is 22 favorite movies of 2020, but I'm keeping this as a trilogy, so it's still 20 movies. And that is the Before trilogy by Richard Linklater. Yes, I watched the Before trilogy for the first time this year, and I loved it. I adored it. All three movies are now three of my favorite movies of all time, especially the first two, Before Sunrise and Before Sunset. I loved them so much. I loved all of them so much. They're all such special movies to me now. I adored them so much. I loved them. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy were just brilliant. They're just so good. I love that trilogy. One of my favorite trilogies on the planet, and one of my favorite, three of my favorite movies of all time now. Yeah. My next favorite movie of 2020 is actually an interesting one because it's a movie I watched back right around the time it came out in 2013, 2014, and I did not like it. I did not like the movie. I thought it was long and confusing, and so I just did not vibe with it. My 13, 14-year-old self was not a fan, but I watched it this time around hoping I would enjoy it more, and I adored it. I sobbed for like half of the movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time now, and it is Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. It's my favorite Christopher Nolan movie now. I adored Interstellar, and now that I'm talking about it, I think I want to rewatch it. I think I'm going to have my parents watch it soon so I can watch it again because I loved it so much. When Jessica Chastain comes into the movie, that like scene, I don't want to spoil it, but that scene like halfway through the movie where Jessica Chastain comes in, the floodworks of tears just came, just the realization of what was going on in the movie and where Matthew McConaughey's character was in his life. It just broke me. I just sat there crying for like 20 minutes. I had to pause the movie and just sit there and cry. It's brilliant. I know it's kind of an not underrated, but it's not what's considered like the best Christopher Nolan movie. A lot of Christopher Nolan fans kind of consider it like not their favorite or whatever. It's my favorite. I love it more than Inception. I'm unpopular opinion, but I'm not a fan of Inception. Maybe I will 10 years from now. I never would have imagined that I'd love Interstellar like I do now, so you never know. Maybe 5-10 years down the line I'll love Inception, but right now Interstellar is my favorite. I loved it so much. Brilliant movie. I loved Interstellar. Yeah. My next favorite movie of 2020 is technically not, it's not like a movie, but it is a movie. It's an official recording of a Broadway show that was finally released on Disney Plus in 2020, and that is Hamilton. I have been a big Hamilton fan. If you didn't know, I'm a huge fan of musical theater and Broadway, and I've been a fan of Hamilton since late 2016 going into 2017. That was the spring of 2016 going into the winter of 2017, or maybe going into the spring of 2017, I don't know. Anyways, that, like, a year-long period, Hamilton was all that I listened to when it was huge, you know, for like a year. It wasn't into late 2017, but anyways, I was so excited for this like recording of the show to come out, and it did not disappoint. Hamilton was brilliant, and yeah, it makes my top 20 movies of 2020. Just amazing, outstanding, incredible. My next favorite movie of 2020 is a actual 2020, no, actually it was a 2019 release, and that is Dr. Sleep. Another creation by one of my favorite directors, Mike Flanagan. This is the sequel to The Shining. I was so excited to see this movie, and I unfortunately did not get to see it in theaters, so my parents and I watched it at home, and oh my god, guys, I adored it so much. So much. Man, talking about all these movies right now, I'm just wanting to go and rewatch all of them right now, but I loved Dr. Sleep so much, guys, and I wish it got more love than it did. And I don't even think that it was that it didn't get any love. I just think that not enough people went and saw it in theaters. And so people just kind of forgot about it, because, like, looking at reviews on letterboxd of the movie, a lot of people who watched it really did enjoy it. It was just that not many people, like, not any of, like, the mainstream audience of today, no one went out and saw it. Maybe it was because it was called Dr. Sleep, so it wasn't really clear that it was a sequel to The Shining. Maybe it was because it was really long. I don't know, but this movie deserves so much love. I loved Dr. Sleep. Absolutely brilliant movie. Yeah, one of my favorites of 2020. My next favorite movie of 2020 is another oldie like Ghost, not even really too old, but an 80s movie, I believe, and that is Moonstruck. I saw Moonstruck starring Cher and Nicolas Cage. What do we call him? Does he just go by Nick Cage, or is it Nicolas Cage? It's both, technically. I just don't remember what he, like, most commonly goes by, so I'm gonna say Nick Cage. Yeah, Nick Cage and Cher. No, that sounds wrong. I'm gonna go by Nicolas Cage and Cher finally watched this movie. This is one of my mom's favorite movies, and I've finally seen it, and I loved it. It's so fun. It's just so fun. That's just the word that comes to mind. I just loved it. I loved it. That's all. I'm just gonna keep repeating I loved it, because that's the only words that are coming to mind right now in this quick little review. I loved Moonstruck, and I love Cher. Also, one more thing actually about Moonstruck. Nicolas Cage for me kind of has the same vibe as Tom Cruise, where usually when I watch a movie with Nicolas Cage in it, it's just kind of like, oh, he's there, and he does a great job, but it's never like he's one of my favorite parts of the movie. But with Moonstruck, I was just so enamored by him. I was like, oh my god, I love Nicolas Cage in this movie. Why is he so good? Why is he fantastic? I was so here for him in Moonstruck. So yeah, kind of the same opinion I had about Tom Cruise in Rock of Ages, I have about Nicolas Cage in Moonstruck. But yeah, one of my favorite movies I watched in 2020. The next of my favorites of 2020, I believe this is number 16, so we're almost there, was Escape Room, which came out in 2019, and I just now got to, and I loved it. It was so good. I've never done an escape room in real life, but now I want to do one. Not necessarily because of what happened in this movie. This movie is like an escape room to the utter extreme. I do not want to go through what happened in the movie, but I want to do one now, because it just, the normal ones that don't have life-threatening situations in them seem fun. But yeah, I loved Escape Room. I've heard they're doing a sequel that's supposed to come out in like 2021. I think, and I'm very excited for it. I thought it was such an original movie and such a fun thriller / horror movie. Yeah, I loved Escape Room. Number 17 out of my top 20 favorite movies of 2020 is, I think, the oldest movie on this list, and this movie is 12 Angry Men. A very iconic movie, kind of considered one of the like top movies ever. And okay, I went into this very nervous that I wasn't gonna like it, because sad to say, sometimes it can be a struggle for me to love like classic movies, like 50s and older, just because they can a lot of times be slower, sadly, than modern movies. I still try and watch the classics because they're the classics, you know, every film buff needs to watch the classics, like me, someone wanting to go into the film industry, you know, so, but I'm always nervous going in. Like, for example, I'm just gonna, you know, I'm gonna admit this right now to you all, I am not a fan of Casablanca. I said it. I'm not. Maybe I will be, and I hope I am sometime in the future, because so many people love Casablanca, like literally almost everyone ever in life. But so yeah, I do want to love Casablanca at some point in my life, but I just don't, and it makes me feel bad about myself. Like, I should love Casablanca, why don't I? So many other people do, but I just was bored, and I'm so sorry. I don't want to be bored by the movie. But anyway, so I was nervous going into 12 Angry Men, because I was like, this is another classic that so many people praise. I really want to enjoy it, but I'm not gonna like fake enjoyment, you know. I'm not gonna fake it just because it's a classic. I'm gonna give my honest opinion on movies, you know. But I loved 12 Angry Men, guys. You knew going in when I said it. I'm not gonna mention it if it's not my favorite movies. I adored 12 Angry Men. I was hooked from the start. I didn't know how hooked I was gonna be going in reading the plot. I was like, I don't know. But then I, like, about maybe 5 minutes in, the jurymen going into the room and starting to discuss it, I was so hooked. I was so excited. It's so good, and I want to rewatch it soon, because it's been a minute. It's been like maybe 4 or 5 months since I watched it, and I want to watch it again because it was so good. I loved 12 Angry Men. I feel also like so like, oh, I loved a classic movie from the 40s. Yes, I have taste. I have taste, guys. Yes, I had Rock of Ages, and yes, I had Eurovision in my favorite movies of 2020, but I also had 12 Angry Men, so I think that balances it. I think that balances it out, you know? Yeah, I loved 12 Angry Men. Highly recommend. I think you can only watch it by like renting it on Amazon Prime, but please, if you have not seen 12 Angry Men, it's a classic, and if I loved it, there's a very good chance you'll probably love it too, because it takes a lot for me to love a classic movie, and I loved it, so highly recommend. The next movie that was one of my favorites that I watched in 2020 is a movie that I actually talked about in my October wrap-up, and that is Poltergeist. Yes, Poltergeist made my 20 movies of 2020 list. Yeah, I loved Poltergeist so much. It was such a surprise to me how much I enjoyed it. I had so much fun with it. It was so good. Yeah, I'll leave, I don't remember if I've already left a card for my October wrap-up in this video. I think I did. Just, if you've seen my October wrap-up, you'll hear me go more into my thoughts on Poltergeist. But yeah, one of my favorites of 2020. The 19th movie out of my favorite movies of 2020 is Dallas Buyers Club, another Matthew McConaughey movie. We have a Matthew McConaughey theme of this year. But yeah, I went into Dallas Buyers Club thinking that I would enjoy it, but I didn't think I'd love it as much as I did. I absolutely adored Dallas Buyers Club. I think the story, it was based on a true story. I think the story is so important and just so captivating and intriguing, and I absolutely adore the movie. I think it was made so well, so good. It deserved the attention, the awards hype that I think it got back in like 2012 or 2014. 2014, because the movie came out I think in 2013, so it would have been in the 2014 award season, and I think it totally deserved to be there. Yeah, highly recommend watching Dallas Buyers Club if you haven't seen it already. It tells a really important and good story. And we have made it to my last favorite movie of my 20 favorite movies of 2020, and it is, drum roll please, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yes, another 80s movie. I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off for the first time this year, and I absolutely adored it. It was so good. I loved it so much, guys. I loved it. I loved the main guy in it. What was his name? Let me check real quick. Matthew Broderick. I loved Matthew Broderick, guys, in this movie. I just loved his like whole breaking the fourth wall and like talking to the camera the whole time, and just how smooth and how smart Ferris Bueller was. It was so fun. And also the girl from Dirty Dancing had a role in it, which I love because I've only ever seen her in Dirty Dancing. I loved it. This is probably my favorite John Hughes movie, more than The Breakfast Club. I love The Breakfast Club, but I loved Ferris Bueller's Day Off more. I still love some more John Hughes movies I need to see. I definitely haven't seen every John Hughes movie, but so far out of the 2 I have seen, Ferris Bueller's Day Off is my favorite and the last of my favorite movies of 2020. And with that, y'all, we are to the end of this video. I had so much fun filming this video. I hope you guys got some good recommendations. These were my top 20 movies and top 5 shows I watched this year, so they must be good because I watched a lot this year. Actually, speaking of that, I'm on Letterboxd. If you didn't know, you can find me by Rachel Rimini, just my name. And every year on Letterboxd, they do like a wrap up of everything you've watched in the year, the most directors you've watched in the year, like the most common actors you've watched in the year, just like a whole summary of your year in film, which I think is, it's one of my favorite parts of Letterboxd. I love Letterboxd. And I'll just pop up right here a little picture, or a couple pictures. I'll do a little slideshow right here on either side of me of like my stats for the year. I think that'd be a fun thing to include. This one here includes the total number of movies that I watched in 2020, which is 399, I believe. You'll see the total amount right here along with like some other little stats, and I'll have other pictures here. I don't know which ones ahead of time. I just know that this one will have the one with my total number of movies I watched. So yeah, that's a lot of movies. That's the most movies I've watched in one year ever, I think. I've just been, every year I've been watching more and more movies. It's just steadily climbed since I joined Letterboxd in 2017. But yeah, so if I've watched that many movies, you could probably hopefully tell that the top 20 that I chose, as well as the 5 TV shows I chose, must be pretty dang good if those are the ones I chose out of that many movies. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm so excited now to make my 2021 wrap up a year from now. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to follow me on my social media. My Instagram is @RachelRimini and my Twitter is @Rachel_Rimini. Did I say that right? Twitter is Rachel_Rimini and my Instagram is @RachelRimini. I don't know if I put an underscore in both of those, but it's right up here. It blooped up there with a little pop sound. I can't speak anymore. I've been filming for a while, but yeah, they're up here. Also, my Letterboxd is up here as well. Rachel Rimini. Highly recommend checking out that site if you are a fan of cinema, film, anything of that sort. It's a fun site to check out and get movie recommendations from there. And just if you're a fan of organization and keeping track of things in your life, that's how I keep track of everything I've watched, and it's a very helpful, resourceful tool. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye. Over meadows, inside sprung grass.